everything was better back in my day is a sentiment everyone hates when they're young and adopts when they're old. Music, films, arts, foods, even the weather. As we know, obviously there's sometimes truth in that, and sometimes things weren't always better in the past. But with all that being said, I think Pixar movies were actually better back in my day. Pixar released its first full feature film back in 1995 with this little cult film called Toy Story, and they've been releasing objective bangers ever since. I was sitting here on my bony little behind when the Elemental trailer dropped and graced these very eyeballs. Although gracing is a little bit flattering, it was more disgrace. I don't know, I don't want to be that guy, but here I go being that guy. I've made similar videos talking about Marvel, and I only make these points because I initially like these companies. I've always thought Pixar has had a big quality gap between companies like Illumination, but the only thing stopping this film from looking at our place in their catalogue was a couple poop jokes.
Do we do after we go potty?
This trailer looked like a big departure from what I believe Pixar made a name for being, creative. If we work our way through Pixar's catalogue, start with Toy Story. What if your toys were alive? What would they get up to the second you stop playing with them? And what happens when you stop playing with them forever? Monsters Inc. What if the monsters hiding in your closet wasn't your mind playing tricks on you, but they were actually real? How would that work? And why would they need to be scaring you? What if we just did the most heartbreaking vignette we can at the beginning of the film to emotionally break our audience, and then try and make them go on this fun, beautiful journey of a man flying his house using nothing but party balloons for a chubby little ethnic boy to the destination of his past love's dreams? Ratatouille. What if we tell the story of someone with a passion to do great things, but what's holding them back is that they are a rat who can cook, finds himself in a Parisian kitchen cooking 5-star dishes by puppeting the hair of a kitchen porter. Wall-E. Or if we did mainly a silent love story between two machines, an overarching message of pollution, climate change, obesity, and basically the general future of humans on that current trajectory. Pixar majored in what ifs. They mastered in asking you questions. They was a school for impossible stories that always landed on their feet. And in between all those master strokes, you had Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, A Bug's Life, and Cars. The first two being many people's favorite Pixar films. The third one being a tight, underrated quotable film with many copycats to follow, and the fourth one being one of the most profitable and honestly maybe the most underrated film they've ever made. And on Cars 2 is where the first problem started, I feel. I'm not making this based purely on that Elemental trailer, although that is playing a big part. I think the decline has slowly been coming. Although Cars 2 wasn't our first sequel from Pixar, it was the first unnecessary one. It was a cash grab. It was there to make merchandise money after the success of the first one, and it was an insight into the future of Pixar if the reviews weren't so bad. Straight after, we received Brave, which was dull, Monsters University, and now in the prequel. It felt like the company got itself back on track with Inside Out, which for a lot of people felt like a breath of fresh air and almost a relief after the short run of bad form. That film would only prove to be an anomaly though, as Pixar then would go and put out The Good Dinosaur, an unimaginative snooze fest with poor character design, Finding Dory, another mid-prequel, and Cars 3, which although better than the prior, was quite predictable and ultimately being better than shite is a bare minimum. As an audience, we then got our second hit of fresh air with Coco.
Yes! You don't get to die!
A colourful look into another culture and approach to life and death. They're also alien to a lot of Western minds. But once again, we then go on another 3-film bad run that really lacked that same vibrancy. Incredibles 2, which is fun because we love The Incredibles, but not because we love Incredibles 2. Toy Story 4, which is now our second out of probably 3 endings to these character stories, with a Toy Story 5 just confirmed. And Onward, which was an actors play themselves snooze fest. And don't get me wrong, there are still great Pixar moments in all of these films, but Pixar weren't a company of just moments. They're a company, and you notice it. They used to feel like a collection of people who came out of a small class, had original stories to tell, accidentally deleted one of those stories twice, had to get it reinstalled from an employee's home computer. In companies, when putting in millions of dollars, you need to be making millions of dollars. When your current original stories are not grossing and or they're being put immediately onto a streaming service, you need to be able to fall back on your franchise films, your bankers. Pixar isn't some small indie art house company. It's one of the biggest in the world and owned by our Disney overlords. Pixar's 4 most recent films have been Soul, Luca, Turning Red, and Lightyear. Lightyear aside, it's a promising return, although Luca isn't the game changer and Soul pussied out in its ending. A lot of people felt connected to Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, and they're all solid films. Like, Elemental isn't out yet. This is all speculation, but it looks like it's from a studio that isn't Pixar and looks to follow a similar format in terms of world building to films like The Emoji Movie, if I'm being honest. Although I do not like the art style, I can respect it, at least for trying to be different. If companies never did, we never would have got into the Spider-Verse, which seems to have inspired a bunch of films like it, and they look to be matching that same quality too. But to me, this just seems like a miss. And whenever I bring this up to people I'm always met with, you just don't like them anymore because you're not a kid anymore, and current kids probably like these movies. And why are you making video essays for YouTube about films that are for children? And I say, firstly, Pixar isn't just making films for the current day kids, they're making them for the kids and adults who they first captured the minds of 28 years ago on a cinema screen in the year of 1995, family car rides in 2004, and through VHS players on repeat in 2008. I've worked tearing tickets and cleaning cinema screens for a fair amount of time, and when a new one of these kids films comes out, I see, yes, parents with their kids But I also see parents without their kids, people who don't even have kids, just people with their buddies going to see a film like they would any other. And when I go into those screens during the films, I see a few kids watching, some asleep, a lot on their iPads. Every adult who maybe still is that kid at heart tuned in. I'm not even saying it's a bad thing that kids nowadays always got their heads down in screens or anything like that, because that point has been made in abundance and is done to death. I'm just making a few observations. And secondly, this whole kids film thing is bullshit anyways. What even are kids films? What, like a film with no swearing in it? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, as far as I'm aware, I don't like films that are for kids. I'd say The Secret Life of Pets is a kids film. Ratatouille is just a film. It's for anybody. That film can literally speak to anyone. To me, what a kids film really means is two things: a film for infants and for making money. And Pixar doesn't make kids films, they just make animated films. Or at least they used to.